So this is a new government thing. Schools will be told don't teach children any form of sex education until year 5 when they're 9. According to the Times, other measures due to be announced by the Education Secretary tomorrow will also prevent children from being proactively taught about other genders, told that they can change their gender, and won't allow explicit sexual conversations until the age of 13. That would also be the age that pupils would be taught about contraception, STIs and abortion. Well, what do you think about that, Lynn?
See, I don't see why any child below the age of 9 should be learning about sex. What I would say, maybe when it comes to safety, understanding, if you happen to see somebody that tries to come in the toilet, notify an adult, those sorts of things. But I don't think a full-blown understanding of what this does, what that does, having sex, I think that's too much. And I think we're taking
13 seems late, though.
I think we're taking away children's innocence. If we look at the decades and then mirror children who are having, teens that are having younger and younger and younger sex, and they're becoming more privy to adult-style sexual relationships, I think this has something to do with it.
Michael, what do you think? Part of this is not saying there are lots of genders. So, for example, I think the 71st gender is what's called mirror gender, where your gender changes based on the people you're standing next to.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, obviously, I think everyone agrees that the 73 genders is somewhat ridiculous. I mean, there is a more serious point, though, which is that, that trans people have always existed. Yes, more people are coming out as trans than have in the past, but we can assume that sort of in a classroom, there will be one kid who's probably going to be much happier being trans. And then it's a question of, is your lesson sort of trying to make them feel that they're comfortable and, not abnormal, let's say. And this is, the same thing happened with gay people, didn't it? So in the 1980s, you sort of had Margaret Thatcher saying, we can't have teachers telling kids they have the God-given right to be gay. And now, 30 years later, we've all sort of recognised, actually, it's really important to tell even quite young kids that some people are gay. Because
what about sex education for 7, 8-year-olds?
Well, so what I'm finding obviously, I don't think 7 or 8-year-olds should be taught about sex per se. What I'm a bit confused about here, so I think according to the government, in primary schools, the subjects that you're taught in primary school are the building blocks for healthy, respectful relationships focusing on family and friendships. So if what we mean by sex education is telling kids that, yes, you might have a dad and a dad as well as a mum and a dad, and sort of relationships should be based on consent, then I don't see why that should wait until year 5.
Lynn?
I think about the family dynamic, yes, but then it's gone beyond that with sex education because let's say, for example, I think personally it should be down to the parents to do that. I have no issue with teachers saying, Johnny had a question, I think it's important you cover that at home. But I think with various different teachers having certain biases or certain belief systems themselves, I don't think they should impose that on children the way that they teach, and it's only natural that they're going to do that. So I think when you get to 13, a 13-year-old can have a level of discernment where whatever they're learning, they can go back home and say, Mummy, Daddy, this is what because an incident happened with my friend's daughter where she was absolutely happy to be a girl. And a teacher said, no, you can choose to be a boy. And she started saying, well, I want to be a boy now. That's not gender dysphoria. That's not trans. That's being told by a teacher, actually, you don't have to be a girl, sending her home confused. And I disagree with that.
OK, let's talk to Sarah in Leicestershire. What do you think, Sarah, about the government saying this? Hey, Sarah? She's not there. Sarah, come to the phone. Where are you? Where's my sign? I haven't got it. OK. Go on, Sarah. OK. Wenny in Cambridgeshire. Hi.
Hi, yeah.
Hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I've had this experience. My daughter is 9 years old and she came on her periods at 9 years old and she asked me, Mum, my friends know nothing about this. What do I do? At the same time, she was proud that she'd come on, but at the same time, she was also, a bit saddened that her friends didn't understand. And I said to her, make your own choice. If you want to tell your friends, it's up to you. And she did, and some of the parents questioned why had she told them, but they was very, very interested in what she was doing and why she was going to the toilet. I do think sex education should be taught earlier, and I did teach my daughter myself about periods and sex education, and a good job I did, because 9 years old, she's my baby. That's my baby that would be coming into a woman, you know, a little grown woman. And
Nine
it's too
seems
early.
very early to me.
But Winnie, isn't it? I think it's fantastic that you were able to have, as a mother, that conversation with your daughter.
Yeah.
It's intimate. I remember when I first started my period, I was panicked. You know, I didn't know what it meant, how it felt, and I was happy I could speak to my parents. And I think when we speak about sex education, do you not think that should be done in the home first?
Yes, I do. I absolutely agree, because you should have that understanding with your child and get in there first before anybody can tell them anything else that's different. Tell them exactly what's going on and how it's going to happen, because her friends, none of them had started. But sex education don't just come with just periods. It comes with a whole spectrum of it, you know. And the thing is like, she's the woman she is today because
I got it. Your line's dropping off a bit, Winnie, but thank you so much. We've got it. Thank you. I think we now have Sarah in Leicestershire. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, good morning. Good morning
Hello.
to the panel.
So what do you think? Is 9 too early or
Yes,
too
I
late?
do. I absolutely think that 9 is too early. I'm with the lady that's on your panel this morning. I think there are people out there who have teachers who have certain beliefs about gender and gender ideology, and they're imprinting that onto young people and confusing them. There's been some studies done recently by renowned psychologists all over the world that are now saying, you know, teaching this kind of thing too early is really harmful to children, and especially giving them false information like gender reassignment surgery. You can come back from that. You can't come back from that. I think biology has to trump ideology, and I think children's welfare should come above anybody's ideology.
Michael,
and
you agree
we
with
should
this?
just allow
Hang on,
children.
Sarah,
I
let
suppose
Michael come in.
A question, would you say the same thing about gay relationships, for example? So do you think that sort of a 9-year-old at school, or even someone younger than 9, for example, should be told that, you know, some kids in this school might have a mum and a dad, some might just have a mum, some might just have a dad, some might have 2 dads, some might have 2 mums, you know, because some people would think that
Let her
that's
answer.
ideology.
Yeah, I teach that to my child, but that's not changing ideology. That's just showing that love is love no matter what it is, and you know, 2 men can love each other, 2 women can love each other, 1 child could have 2 mums or anything. I've taught my little girl that ever since she was really little. Love is love, and there is nothing bad about that. I have gay friends, but I also have gay friends that have been told by people within the trans community that clearly they're in the wrong body because they're gay. And that is when I completely disagree with gender ideology. I think children should be allowed to be water. They should be allowed to be free. Just let them, at the moment, what's happening is, as soon as children say, I identify or I'm confused about this, they're put in a box. They don't need to be put in a box. Just let them be children.
OK, Sarah, thank you. Thank you so much. After the break, we'll take now more calls on whether we should ban any form of sex education for children under 9. And part of this is the whole gender issue of whether they should be told, you know, there are more than 2 genders. Some people say there are 74. Jane in Lincolnshire, hi. Oh, Jane. We haven't got Jane either. Philippa in London, hi.
Hello.
Thank the Lord. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What do you think about this? Because 9, European continental countries, they start earlier than this.
I actually believe that sex education should start as soon as possible. It's got to be age-related. I think that's very important, age-related, because mums at the school would be pregnant. You know, how do you explain that?
Yeah, well, in the olden days, they'd say, a stork brought it. But that doesn't... Kids are more curious than that now.
Yeah. I'm a retired nurse, and I took a child to theatre to have a termination. She was 11 years old, holding a teddy bear, never knew how she got pregnant. And for that reason, I think it's really important that they have some form of sex education.
Well, that is very wise.
But that's 11 years old. If we look at what you just said, you said as soon as possible. So let's take, for example, 3 years of age, but it should be age appropriate. How would you teach a 3-year-old about sex education, for an example?
I'm not a teacher. I'm a nurse. I tend to. Sorry, if you're talking, I can't hear.
No, we're listening to you.
Yeah, I'm a nurse. I'm not a teacher, so I feel that I trust the educators to do it in a way that it's appropriate. I'm not talking about going, full on thing, sex education. I was very much, my children had their sex education started at the age of 7. At the time, there was a big hoo-ha at the school, and I went along and argued for it. I've only got 2 sons, and my children knew about periods. They knew about everything.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mandy in Hampshire, hi.
Hello.
You are a teacher, so Lynn's question was, what if you're going to try educating sex education at 3? What are you saying?
Well, in my school, we kind of start with relationships, healthy relationships, how to treat each other, how to talk to each other, etc., etc. I've got I teach year 5, so I teach 9-year-olds sex education, and then we go on to body parts and how to take care of ourselves and all that sort of thing. Yeah. And then eventually it moves on to what your parts are for, and etc., etc. We don't touch on gender. We don't do anything like that. It's all about staying healthy, keeping, knowing what's right and what's wrong, etc. And I don't know, the whole kind of gender thing and people wanting to change genders, etc., etc. Of course, that's happening, and the children know all about that. They know way more than we think they know.
Yeah,
that I can
they
tell you.
know the right stuff is different, isn't it? Because they might know a Gen Z version of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You might want to correct it.
But we give them the chance to ask questions. They do an anonymous kind of little, questions in a box type thing, and then we pull them out and we go through them, and that's all part of the lesson as well.
Okay, what do you think, Michael?
Well, I wanted to ask, actually, sort of from your experience as a teacher, because I think there's been a bit of a moral panic to some degree, sort of by the right-wing press and by the Conservative parties, to sort of say all of these nefarious teachers are trying to teach all of our children gender ideology or whatever they want to call it. Has that made your life harder? Do you feel sort of more under pressure from the parents at your school? Are people sort of scrutinising what you're teaching kids more than before?
Yeah, there is a little bit of that, where you don't want to say anything that you think, oh, someone's going to jump on that and it's all just going to be a disaster. But, we have had and we do have children who have got older siblings who have changed gender. So we have to be aware of that. And they might say in the middle of the lesson, oh, my sister used to be a boy. And you just say, oh, yeah, great, Are they all right now? Are they getting on all right? Yeah, brilliant.
Can you challenge that? Can you say, I mean, I do not know, whether if someone says, look, my sister used to be a boy and now she's a girl, whether you can say, well, that's not possible because they're biologically still male.
No,
you can't do that.
And I wouldn't want to anyway. I wouldn't want to make that child feel uncomfortable in that environment.
I don't know. I'm just saying some people think that. I'm not giving my views. What do you think about that?
I think that we need to get used to the fact that, okay, now they're a trans girl. Now they're a trans boy. I've spoken to a group of trans people recently, and they were very, very open and honest. Yes, we didn't feel comfortable in the body we were born in. However, now we want to live as women or live as men, but we will never be men and women. And that's the honesty, I think, me as a woman, that's the honesty I look for when I speak to a trans woman. You're never going to be like me, but I appreciate you want to live as someone like me. Sure,
yeah, but when we go... Thanks, Mandy, by the way. When we go on genders, okay, now some of them are clearly silly.
Yeah.
But we've talked heterosexual... Sorry, I'm talking about sexuality, forgive me. So confusing, isn't it? Heterosexual, homosexual, asexual...
But
where do you end?
Going back on this, you suggesting, this is right-wing media, the Conservatives drumming up, much to do about nothing. Well, no, on the contrary, we have many groups of people that are strong Christians or Muslims or other faiths that they don't actually, according to their religious books, and they're nothing to do with necessarily politically, they don't want their children to be subjected to this. You even had George Galloway on, a platform that you're on, Novara, where he said he said we should embrace and treat with respect people who are gay. And I'm not saying I agree with him, but he said he doesn't want his children to think that's normal per se, for the simple fact that, okay, a man and a woman can have children, a man and a man can't. And I think that also needs to be brought into the conversation. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's done in a respectful way.
So I don't think anyone is suggesting teaching children that men and men can make children. But I do think there is a problem with this idea where you say parents should have absolute control over what their kids are taught. I think with gender, I think we haven't really decided as a society what we think. So it's a really difficult situation to put teachers in. But with, say, just homosexuality, I think we can all agree, if you've got parents who are homophobic, who think that it's terrible for people to be gay and that's immoral and you're going to hell, I think it's very useful, actually, that we do have a system whereby you can't take your kid out of that class. Because if you're saying, I don't believe homosexuality is okay, therefore my kid can't learn it, well, there are going to be gay kids in strict religious families. And I think the state does have a role to sort of tell that kid that you're not abnormal.
Anne is in Kent. Hello, Anne.
Oh, hi, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on. I want to bring up a few things, few points. One was you were confused yourself a few moments ago in trying to navigate through the language. And if you're confused and you're an adult, how on earth are children meant to process this?
So I've got in front of me a list of the 72 genders, right?
Yeah.
Number 68 is gender witched. The person is inclined towards the notion of having one gender, but does not know which. Now, that is different from sexuality, which we're discussing, where you can be, male, female, male-female. You can be asexual. That's a whole other list. So you're right. There is a bit of confusion here.
Right. And I'm coming from, a child under the age of 9 is, the developmental age. They're unable to process this stuff. It's confusing. It's hugely confusing. So we're providing them with all this information. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know where to go with it. And as a result, we're now in a situation where we have young women, young teenagers who want to change their body and change their sex, which is obviously clearly impossible. And this is rooted in this confusion that has been taught to them from a very young age. And it's frightening.
Yeah,
right?
So you're against somebody, whatever age they are, saying, I think I should have been a man even though I'm biologically female and therefore I want to change. You wouldn't be in favour of that?
Because it's not rooted in reality. I mean, I work in the mental health field, and I work in grounding people into reality. And this whole gender ideology is not grounded in reality, and it's confusing.
Thank you, Anne, so much. Thank you. Very interesting of how far you go teaching all of this complication to young children.